Welcome to the Reddit Rainforest. Don't forget to grab your hat, rope and boots. We are heading into the forest for some loot today. What's the most baddest thing you have done? I was young. Probably 11. I had a kid try to tackle me from behind and I flipped him over my shoulder. It was ducking dope. When I was going through my malarkey head phase as an 8-year-old, I once got pissed off because a 5th grader cut me in line, so I jumped onto his back and clung on like a ducking monkey. But then he grabbed and flipped me over his head and I hit the ground hard. Naturally, I cried and said I did nothing wrong. A while back I looked outside my house to see the sky was overcast, so I lifted up my hands and snapped my fingers and lightning flashed right in front of my house. I felt hella badass after that moment, and recently I thought back to that moment and decided to snap my fingers again, and then a power surge or a short outage took place in my house. This was late in the night BTW. One day I will learn to master this power I have over electricity and exploit it for my own lazy benefits. Not my most badass moment, but once in 3rd grade, we were playing dodgeball with those iconic red rubber balls, and my 2 friends happened to be on the other team that day, and well, I had a ball. Ducking whipped it at one of my friends, cracked him straight in the face. The ball bounced off, only to hit my other friend right in his face. I got a collateral headshot in dodgeball. By far my favorite elementary school moment. You would have been out twice if you had done that at my school. When I was 18, I was an EMT. My first emergency call. After we got the guy to the ER alive, the ER doctor looked at me and said, "Do you know what you did? You just saved that man's life." I'm 23 now, and EMS was not the career for me, but I still think about that moment a lot. That's awesome. Any details on what you did to save the man's life? I was brand new, so I had a paramedic and an EMT with me. I'm not sure exactly what was wrong with him, but the medic thought he odd on something. I had to keep his airway open and keep his oxygen strong. His airway was obstructed. I suctioned out half a pulled pork sandwich and a ton of beer and vomit. To this day the worst thing I have ever smelled. Then bagged him to keep his oxygen up. When we got to the ER we ran to the room while I was still bagging him, and I kept going until the doctor told me I could stop. I had a medic with me ready to step in, but she did not. She let me take the lead, and for the first time in my life I kind of felt like I was doing something that I was truly good at. I was pumping gas at a station with my sister, me being 19 at the time and her being 16, when a man, probably like 25 years old, got into the backseat of my car. I started to yell at him to get out of my car. My sister was shaking scared. He then pulled a gun on me and told me to get in the car and drive. Without even thinking, I started to make him question himself by saying, "Or what? Are you going to shoot me right here in this well-lit gas station? There are other people around. Did you really think this through?" He started to look around, called me a stupid bitch, got out of the car and ran off. I heard that if a person pulls a gun on you, you gotta act calm. Feel back away, because they do not expect that reaction. Edit. People are saying that I'm wrong, so maybe do not stick with this advice. What are you gonna do? Shoot me? Balls of steel right there. So funny story, I actually did this. Met my friend's buddy for the first time and he pulled a prank where he had a fake gun and was going to pretend to stick me up. I looked him dead in the eye and told him, "You are not going to do that. It's broad daylight with all these houses around." He was dead silent, looks around and did not know what to say. He kept the gun to my head while I remained eye contact. He puts it down and goes, "I was not expecting that. Hung out with him for like an hour and I made an escape pretty quickly cause he was a hooligan. Guy pulled a knife on me when I was a bit tipsy and waiting for a bus and demanded my wallet. Without thinking I hit him in the jaw and knocked him out cold. Stole his knife and walked away. Still have the knife somewhere around here. I was sitting in a chair and I threw a gummy bear up and hit a really high ceiling, and I caught it in my mouth without moving and comfortably to catch it. That's where I peaked emo. In my high school stats class, we did an experiment where we all threw 10 goldfish crackers to ourselves and to a partner, trying to catch them in our mouths so we could compare the data. I went 10/10ths on both and was an outlier. Needless to say, I was quite popular. Good one. I have a similar story. My friend was throwing a cookie to another friend about 8 feet away. I dove between them and intercepted the cookie with my mouth, which was crazy because it was not small and it rotated perfectly in the air to dock with my mouth. No cookie ever tasted so much like victory. I was at a small local concert that was being held in a park. It was a bunch of metal and thrash bands, mostly local acts, but a few touring bands. The gazebo where we were playing was on a small island in a lake, with the only access being a bridge that led to the parking lot. The event organizers had a couple of people stationed on the bridge to take tickets. It was a pretty cool setup to just be available for us to rent out. Everyone was being pretty chill and enjoying the show. There was a mosh pit with a few guys, but there was plenty of room. Then this group of idiots shows up. 70% of this crowd is underage, but these guys show up drunk and with more beer and immediately start causing trouble. They are asked to leave and told the cops are being contacted. Tensions are high, yelling and cussing all over. But hey, they are leaving now. Maybe we can go back to enjoying ourselves. One of the organizers walked behind them while she was escorting them out, phone in hand. Just as they reached the bridge, this guy turned around and slapped the crap out of her. I saw red. The stage was about 50 meters from the bridge and I broke into a sprint heading for this guy, ready to whoop his ass. Halfway there all 5 of these guys turn and run. A big guy, but still, I did not expect all 5 to run. I get to the chick that got slapped and I stop running. She is safe and am feeling like a badass for chasing these guys off. Then I turn to see that all of the no less than 200 people at the show saw the same thing I did and were right behind me, ready to stomp these guys onto the ground. So, I did not chase them off myself, but I basically led a battle charge. My brother and I are close in age, so we grew up always playing on the same hockey team together. I'm a girl who's 1 year older than him and was often the only girl on the team. Anyways, during one particular game, when he was 11 and I was 12, this one kid on the other team kept on picking on my brother. He finally illegally tripped my brother and my brother slid headfirst into the boards. The kid got a penalty and went into the box. I decided that when he got out I was going to make my revenge. As soon as he got out I skated towards him at full speed, put my stick between his feet and flipped him onto his head with one swift motion, looked down at him and told him to leave my little brother alone. Then happily skated over to the penalty box while my parents cheered me on from the stands. All the kids on my team thought it was pretty badass, so I'm pretty sure that's the most badass thing I have done. It's also one of my favorite memories. I chased a man down at the mall who had stolen a woman's purse, tackled him, and restrained him until security showed up. Then went to Cinnabon and treated myself. I ate the Cinnabon in one bite. It was the most badass thing I have ever done to date. Damn, I wish I could eat a Cinnabon in one bite. The only thing I got out of this. When I was around 11, my mom's ex-husband was in the other room beating the shit out of her. I had finally had enough and I just called the police and hung up because I knew he'd come, but I could not let him hear me talking. I then started recording with my phone so I could have it for when the cops got there. The cops showed up 10 minutes later because we lived in a small town at the time. They came just in time to save my mom's life. My mom's ex-husband had been loading his gun. I often think about how things would have gone down if I just let it happen, like I let it happen all those years before. This is probably not as badass as everyone else's story, but my mom thinks it is. Once I threw a pencil into about a 4-hole in a wall, some 15 feet high from 30 feet away. First try. So I was chilling at my really rich friend's house in high school with a few buddies just smoking a joint outside in the winter, and we hear whimpering/crying. We notice his dog is missing, and soon after our worst fear becomes reality as we see it's him. We heard out on the frozen lake. He walked a good 200 feet out and fell through. Freaking out and stoned, we run to the neighbor's beach that was closer to him, get in their canoe, and start chopping through the ice, pushing ourselves forward inch by inch. About 2/3 of the way out I broke the solid wood all clean in half trying to force ourselves out to him. We make it there and somehow has still managing to stay afloat in the freezing water after being stuck at least 15-20 minutes. I was at the front of the boat, so I got to him first. Now keep in mind this is an absolutely soaked 90 pounds. Dry dog and I'm 57, 120 pounds, but thanks to adrenaline I pulled him out like he was a chihuahua. We get him to the nearest animal hospital, which was like 25 miles away since it was late at night, and he made it. Lived another like 10 years. After that, I was on a tall rock at a beach and I pretended to waterbend a giant wave right as a big wave crashed at the base of my rock and the water rose like 20 feet in the air in front of me. Felt pretty cool. Once I stood out on a tall flat rock by the ocean so my friend could take a pic. I put my arms out, palm up, like beckoning the sea to rise as a joke, and a huge wave came up and crashed all around. Would have made an awesome photo, so I excitedly hopped down and asked if she got it, but she was not even ready with the camera yet. Bah. I used to get in a lot of fights in middle/high school. I'm not really proud of any of them, and I lost almost all of them. but there is this one I'm really proud of. We were at some dumbass 4th of July party that we thought was super cool at the time. It was at some rich kid's house on a big hill, so there was a steep drop at the edge of the yard. These kids started pushing my friend, saying he owed them money. To my knowledge, he had no idea who they were. He seemed like he was handling himself, so I turned around, probably to talk to some girl who had absolutely zero interest in me. Next thing I know, two of these kids have my friend by each arm, while one of them is punching him in the stomach. I grabbed Punchy in a chokehold and threw him down the hill. The rest of the fight basically consisted of shouting and some light pushing / chest bumping while his friends went down to help him up the hill. He was fine, but he did not bother us after that. I'm not a strong guy, and I do not promote violence, but what can I say? It's a fun story, and I was defending my buddy. Doing a hazmat response all suited up where I had to contain water reactive and air reactive chemicals that were in an exploded glove box with nitrogen pouring out. Blood everywhere from the researcher involved on a timer to beat the emptying nitrogen cylinder. Whoa. Can you explain it in detail? Honestly, this is the most interesting response so far. University researcher blew off part of hand while using a glove box. Kind of a clear box that has gloves attached to it facing into the box, so you can work with chemicals under a nitrogen blanket. They ran around bleeding. Firefighter got the part of hand and took them away. Then I was hazmat incident commander dealing with the situation. My boss and I suited up and went in to secure the box so that air did not get into box causing explosion. Nitrogen was just blowing out of the box. We had to essentially close it again. Good old days. I grew up in a not so safe neighborhood, and when I was 16 had a job at the local Dairy Queen. One slow night, 5 minutes before closing, I'm working with one other person, a smaller girl, when two guys ride up on their bikes. Nobody else was around, and it was already completely dark. They walked up to the door and talked a bit before entering. One of them pulled out a gun from a pocket or his pants and put it into his jacket, and a few seconds later goes to open the door. I still do not know why this was my reaction, but suddenly the tall, skinny, pale ginger, took a step towards the door and pointed back outside, made eye contact and said, "You're going to have to leave that outside." The guy with the gun stopped and just said "Oh," politely set the gun outside on the concrete, and came back inside. This was immediately followed by the most okay, just act normal moment in my life. Got an inflatable kayak flipped somewhere between class 3 and 4 rapids on the Colorado River. Was dragged down about 10 to 12 feet, came up under the kayak, had to get out from under it in the rapids. Gathered all my gear back in the water and did not even lose the sunglasses off my face somehow. Also found out a kid died in that same spot a week prior. Snuck out of a friend's house when his parents came home unexpectedly. We ran down the stairs in the back, but the only way to get out was the garage. I allowed the other two friends to go and had to do the dirty work. I pressed the button, ran and tuck, and rolled under the door before the sensors could detect me. We made it out. That concludes this adventure, but do not worry, there are many more coming. Like and subscribe for more videos from the Reddit Rainforest. Thanks for watching.